welcome. I have Dolly with me. Dolly wears many hats. She is a wife, she is a mom, she's a podcast host and a nurse practitioner, as well as a wellness coach. She is also the survivor of barely getting by while raising 3 kids and giving her children tech with no guidance or inkling of an idea of the impact that this decision would make on her children and herself. With her real mom experience, plus her background as a nurse practitioner and wellness coach, she is passionate about equipping you, me, and everyone else in this summit with knowledge, tools, and support that we need in order to be strong. Thank you, Dolly, for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited that you have a presentation and that everyone else watching is going to take part in it. Tell us a little bit, what can we expect from it?
Well, my movement is called the Be That Mom movement, and it's basically the premise that it is important for us to be that mom for our kids so that we allow them to have the discovery and the normal childhood development that they should have. It is my belief that all the digital things are a distraction and are very addictive in their, just the way that they're made. And so it's my experience with my 3 kids that when I allowed it without any boundaries, any guidance, anything to help them with it, that it distracted them to the point of derailing their normal childhood development.
Right. Digital era, digital devices are abundant nowadays with kids. They don't know any different. And we as parents have been told that when someone says something, especially an expert, then we might believe them. So all those advertisements of this is great for your children, throw them in front of the screen. Not necessarily so.
Correct. Yes. It's just one of those things where it's a given with our society, and it has a lot of good things to it. But if we're not providing guidance, then it's completely derailing what they're meant to do in the world. They may never find that if we don't give them the guidance that they need so that they can get to where they are supposed to be in the world and the gifts that they have to offer the world.
Dolly, I can't wait to watch your presentation. Everyone, this is Dolly and her presentation.
Hey, so my name is Dolly Denson, and I am the founder of the Be That Mom movement, and I am the host of the Be That Mom movement podcast. And I have to say that I am so very excited and honored to be a part of this and to be able to present to you today. What I am presenting, I hope, will give you a few simple steps coming from one mom to another to help you with navigating all the digital things with your kiddo. So let's get started. So a little bit of background on me. I am the mom of 3 kids, and I was the lucky one to really be initiated into all the digital things with my kids because their ages are 16, 19, and 23. So not only were they right at the emergence of the internet and smartphones and social media and all the digital things, but they were spread apart enough that each one had unique experiences, unique challenges that we had to face. And so I'm here to say that you can survive taking the hardest route, because I actually think we took one of the hardest routes. And we survived. But in the process, I have come up with this movement and was totally inspired by my struggles in creating this movement to help someone out there who is having similar struggles. So to tell you a little bit of how we got to the place of me creating this movement and my podcast, about 2 years ago, with each one of my kids had their own unique challenges. They are all doing beautifully now. I'm of the firm belief that anyone's challenges can also be like their greatest struggle into their best strength. So I don't think that it was all for naught, but I certainly think that the challenges that were put in our path were reasons to bring me to what I am presenting today and my whole movement and podcast and what it's all about. But 2 years ago, we were really kind of hitting a rock bottom in trying to figure out all the things with the kids. and the digital things. It had been kind of this nagging feeling that I had had for a while, that I needed to do something, that maybe I needed to change what they had access to, what they were doing, how long they had access to it. But up until that point, they had absolute free reign. I had no idea of the dangers that were out there, the influences and all the things, until they had done enough influence on my children that they were going down the wrong path, or not the most ideal path for us. And so that was when I was like, oh my God, we have to make a change. And it was in a moment of desperation, while I sat on my front porch crying, where I that day had realized that we had come to a point where we had to make a change. We were like at a crossroads, and something had to change, something had to give, but I had no idea what. And I sat on my front porch crying with so much mom guilt, saying, holy cow, how did I not see this coming? Why did I not do something sooner? And just feeling so guilty that I didn't have a plan in place. I had never done anything. I was very busy. I'm also a nurse practitioner and have, multiple other things going on in my life. And so I knew something needed to be done, but I kind of was hoping that, a hope and a prayer was going to get us through, because I didn't have time to figure it out. But I sat there on my front porch and I just made a post. I took a picture of myself crying, and I made a post, and I said, please be that mom for your kid. Otherwise, you will be dealing with the things that I'm doing now, because I was afraid to be that mom for my kid. And in that post, there was so much hurt. And the response that I got was amazing and just kind of blew me away, because moms were responding with similar experiences, with questions of how they could avoid what I was going through, because they already saw that there were issues coming down with their kids, and ones that had been through it and were offering me hope. And so it was in that moment that I realized, holy cow, I'm not alone. And this is a very, very common struggle. And so it was in that moment and in that struggle that the Be That Mom movement was born. And it is my belief that we are basically dealing with a new realm of parenting, and it is something that none of us can ignore. And it is also basically like us choosing to be that mom that is proactive in guiding their kids through all of this is actually the key that unlocks the door to their future potential. And if we refuse to be that mom and we let it all go to chance, we are actually possibly withholding them from the future potential that they are meant to discover and to be a part of. And so that's what I want to share with you today, is just a few things to think about in terms of influences that are out there and why you need to take a proactive stance with this. And then to give you 5 starting points, 5 general tips for you to use if you are going down this path or needing to course correct with your own family. So I hope you find this super helpful. When we are finished, I do have a free download of digital resources that I find helpful. And then I encourage you to check out my podcast. It is called the Be That Mom Movement podcast. You can find it on pretty much any place where podcasts are found. You can also go to my website at dollydenson.com. And you can connect with me on social media. I'm most active on Instagram, and I've got my main account, which is Dolly Denson. And then I've got one that is for the podcast. It's and then _, Be That Mom Movement. So if you want to check that out and connect with me in any of those ways, you can also email me at dolly@dollydenson.com. So I hope to hear from you, and I hope that you find this super, super helpful. So let me just share with you a few things, and I'm going to minimize my video here. So as you're probably aware, because you're here and doing all of these wonderful speaker things with each person, you're probably aware of this stuff, but the digital age struggle. The internet emerged in the late 90s, and within 10 years, the smartphone emerged. Shortly after that, we saw the first of social media, and it has rapidly evolved from there. Now, tech certainly can be a good thing, and it's an integral part of all of our lives. I think in many ways it can be positive and amazing, keeping us connected virtually when we can't be together physically, especially in the last year and a half through all that we've all been through. But it also has some things that need to be considered when we are considering how our kids interact with it. So 65% of parents in 2019 that were surveyed said they worry about their kids spending too much time in front of screens. In 2019, YouTube was the most used social media app among teens, followed by Instagram and Snapchat. I bet that those things have changed in light of 2020 and now in 2021. In 2019, TikTok became the fastest growing new app for American teens, and 60% of TikTok users were ages 16 to 24. In 2015, 24% of kids ages 8 to 12 had their own smartphone. And in just 4 years, that number went up to 41%. And I would bet that it is much higher than that now. In 2015, 67% of teens ages 13 through 18 had their own smartphone. And by 2019, the number climbed to 84%. The average 8 to 12-year-old American kid has spent 4 hours and 44 minutes a day looking at screens. That was in 2019. So obviously there are kids out there, and then they're on the screen. So I'm going to give you 5 reasons that the digital interaction and exposure should start with a plan, and why you need to be that mom for your kid. The first reason is connecting our kid to the digital world is like lowering a drawbridge to the world. It literally is opening up a huge can of worms. It's not like our kids going to find a book in a card catalog at the library. Everything is literally at their fingertips. In direct correlation with the increased popularity of smartphones, as well as Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, they have seen spikes with anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. I call this the not enough syndrome, and I'm sure some of the other speakers have spoken to this, but I do believe that with social media and all of the interconnectivity where our kids are able to interact with anything and everything, that they actually, start to think that they're not enough. And I think that's the start of this anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation trends that we are seeing spike in our teens. Another thing to be very much aware of and concerned about is the instances of cyberbullying, which can be among peers. It doesn't have to be from a complete stranger, but also the activity of online predators. They've seen in the year 2020 that huge spike in the activity of online predators, of people that are strangers and are getting in touch with our kids through all the different platforms that are out there where they can connect with strangers. Another thing is the content that they're consuming. It's all impactful. It all has an influence. Much like we, give them a book to read, to learn from, they are going out there, they're curious. That's a natural thing of a child. And so that is drawing them into different worlds. And they say that porn is only a few clicks away from any place that our child is at online. So holy cow, we definitely need to pay attention to that. And then the biggest thing that I think overall we need to be concerned about is the distraction and the addiction. That's the true game here, is drawing our kids in, distracting them, getting them addicted, getting them wanting more and more and more. It holds their attention, and it is affecting their brain development, as I'm sure other speakers have spoken to. And ultimately what that is doing is that is what locks the door on their potential, because they quit doing their normal childhood discovery, and they quit being out in the world and having interests and discovering what they truly want to do with their lives, careers, all of the things. The distraction and the addiction draws them into where, not that it's a bad thing to, want to have a career in gaming or something like that, because people are successful with that, but perhaps there's another interest that they have that they'll never discover. With my kids, once I pulled the digital things away, they found new interests. They became creative again. They got bored with things and they found new things to do. And very, very much part of that is just having them be active and be social and be out in the world. So all of those things are definitely things to consider when we are giving our kids devices. So as you can see, allowing access to the digital things in the hands of our kids cannot be taken lightly. Just like we would not throw them into a swimming pool without giving them floaties and teaching them how to swim, we must guide them when it comes to the digital world and all of the digital devices. So tell me, are you ready to define your That Mom strategy and go from confused and overwhelmed to, I have got a plan? Well, I hope so. And I know I'm talking kind of fast, but I hope that you are getting the gist of what I'm sharing here. So there is hope, and we can define a That Mom strategy. And before I go any further, I just have to say that this is about empowerment. This is about you having a plan that you can move forward with, but it is not an all or nothing thing. So it is not about no screens or, no, like, let's completely get rid of screens and do nothing. I think this is a more realistic plan of moving forward according to their age and their development, and guiding them along this path. So you are in the driver's seat of this path. You are the person that is perfect for this with your child. So these are the 5 things that I would love for you to take a picture of or screenshot and save these as just a general plan for yourself in how you are going to define your That Mom strategy. So the number one thing is to recognize that this is something that needs to be openly addressed with open communication and a plan. It absolutely has to be something that we look at and we know is important for us to do. The second thing is to remember that we are the adult and we are the parent. I guarantee you're going to get a kiddo saying, but mom, all of my friends have this app. All of my friends only communicate through Snapchat. All of the kids come home and say these things, but we as parents need to remember that we have an awareness of how this can influence their development as they grow up, and stay in that parent seat when it comes to this stuff. It's okay to discuss it. And it absolutely should be a place of open communication with them, but also remember that you are the parent and you are aware of more influences and have a more realistic idea of the dangers than they do. The third thing is to make a flexible plan moving forward as a family unit, if that's possible, and then have the opportunity to course correct. So reassess, course correct. If you were setting down rules of when a phone should be used or what apps are allowed, and you were finding that those rules that you have put in place are being broken, then it's time to pull back from that. Maybe pull the phone away and reassess. Are they mature enough to handle this? Maybe we need to move back to a dumb smartphone. Maybe we need to move back and have just a family phone. These are all things that I discuss in my podcast, so please check it out for more information. But it is absolutely okay to have a flexible plan and reassess and course correct as needed. The fourth thing is to plan for progressive independence as they show maturity with their decisions. So it is my belief that you need to have a plan that progresses with them as they get older. So what is appropriate for a younger child isn't necessarily going to be the same for the older child. With my kids, with my youngest especially, I had to pull back the phone completely for a period of time, and then slowly allowed more independence with that, as far as like what apps could be downloaded and what could be done, and having parental control monitoring on the phone for me to just monitor activity. And then as I saw that there was maturity with that, and even just maturity with the amount of time spent on the phone and him being able to regulate himself, then I was able to pull back on the amount of monitoring that I did. And now he's pretty independent with that. And I don't really have to worry about that because he's demonstrated maturity to me. But 3 to 4 years ago, that was absolutely not possible because of his age and because of the temptations and the addiction and all of the things that happen with them interacting with the phone and the apps and all of the things. So there is a place for progressive independence as they get older, but I would absolutely not throw a smartphone into the hands of a middle school child. Again, all of that stuff you can check out on my podcast and some of the free tools and downloads that I have on my website as well, or connect with me directly, okay? And then the fifth and final thing is preserve the non-digital activities in their lives, their interests, their activity, getting up and moving their body and doing things with their fingers and their hands, reading books, exercise, its actual physical activity, being face-to-face with friends and playing with them. All of those things matter so much, and why we think that it's just, a simple going out and shooting hoops. There's dexterity being developed there with the ball and all of that. So don't hesitate from pulling back from those things, and make sure that you focus on doing those things, okay? All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. Please connect with me for any questions or further resources. And here is the free download if you want to check that out. And also check out my podcast, and feel free to email me.